Al-24 Midnight News, and to the headlines. In Palestine, mourners attended the funeral of 16-year-old teenager Amir Abu Zaytoun, who was shot dead by the Zionist forces in the occupied city of Nablus. EU Chief Josep Borrell stressed that no corruption will be tolerated in reference to the Moroccan gate scandal that is still under investigation. Khalid al-Mishri and Aqila Saleh agree on the main provisions aimed at paving the way for the long-awaited presidential elections in Libya. Russian President Vladimir Putin called for Christmas ceasefire, which was rejected by Kiev unless there is a full withdrawal of Russian troops from its territory. Hello there, I'm Abdurrahim Kashur, and those were today's top stories. First, according to the latest edition of the World Bank report, the Algerian economy continued its recovery in the first half of the 2022, thanks to the return of oil production to pre-coronavirus levels and continued progress in the services sector. In addition to the strong recovery of agricultural activity, this recovery is expected to continue until 2023, supported by growth in the non-hydrocarbon sector and public expenditure. The Minister of Religious Affairs and Endowments, Youssef Belmehdi, signed on Thursday the register of condolences at Basilica of Notre Dame Afrique in Algiers, following the death of former Pope Benedict XVI. In his message of condolences, Mr. Belmehdi recalled the positions of former Pope in the service of values of peace and friendship among peoples of the planet and dialogue among religions with respect and tolerance. Mr. Belmehdi expressed to the representatives of the Catholic Church in Algiers and the word on behalf of Algerian government the deepest condolences and feelings of sympathy and compassion, as well as the support of Algeria for the Vatican in the painful event. To Tunisia now, where President Kais Saied warned against what he considered efforts by some parties to prevent the holding of the second round of legislative elections scheduled for January 29, and accused some parties of receiving funds from abroad to finance their plans. The Tunisian president said that there are parties that distribute huge amounts of money to citizens with the aim of disrupting the normal functioning of the second round of elected members of the Assembly of Representatives of the People, or disrupting the normal functioning of some public institutions. Still in the African continent, Sahrawi activists, mostly women survivors of Moroccan secret detention camps, participated in a demonstration organized in Kolomina neighborhood in occupied Al Ayoun to express their support for participants in the 60th Congress of the Polisario Front and their commitment to its outcomes. The participants brandished flags of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and distributed leaflets calling on United Nations to commit itself to empowering the Sahrawi people with their inalienable right to self-determination and independence, and to put pressure on the occupation to liberate all Sahrawi political prisoners and detainees and reveal the still unknown fate of abductees. American news outlet Axios has reported that Morocco has demanded that a Zionist entity recognize its sovereignty over the occupied territory of Western Sahara before Rabat opened an embassy in Tel Aviv, citing 4 current and former Zionist officials involved in the matter. For decades, the Moroccan government has been involved in a long-standing dispute over the territory with the Sahrawi Polisario Front. European Union top diplomat Josep Borrell said that he discussed the issue of the investigation into corruption case that rocked the European Parliament, known as the Moroccan Gate case, with the Moroccan Prime Minister Aziz Akhnouch and Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita. Borrell stressed that the European Union, which is waiting for everyone's cooperation in the investigation, will not tolerate corruption, pointing to lifting the parliamentary immunity of deputies involved in this case.
Nous avons évidemment abordé l'enquête en cours.
We have obviously addressed the ongoing investigation on the allegations of corruption against members of the European Parliament, whose parliamentary immunity has been requested to be lifted. Obviously, we're concerned about these events, which have been reported in the press. They are worrying and the accusations are serious. The position of the European Union is clear. There can be no impunity for corruption. Zero tolerance for that. We must await the outcome of the ongoing investigation by the judicial authorities, which must bring full clarity to these events, and we expect the full collaboration of everyone in this investigation.
National Police dismantled an organization dedicated to fraudulent settlement of Moroccan nationals who presented documents proving their affiliation with Spanish Sahrawi dissidents that had been forged by an official of the civil registry of Moroccan city of Assa at the immigration offices. The agents paid around 3,000 euros to the criminal group to obtain residency in Spain, which estimated the organization's profits to be around 150,000 euros. Two people were arrested in Navarra for belonging to a criminal organization favoring irregular immigration and forging documents, as well as 4 people for forging documents in Navarre. Heads of the House of Representatives and the Supreme Court of State in Libya agreed on most of the provisions of the constitutional documents to facilitate the procedures for long-awaited presidential elections by the Libyan people during a meeting that brought together Khalid al-Mishri and Aqila Saleh in Cairo. December Khan on Osful.
In a dialogue session to resolve the protracted political crisis, heads of the Supreme Council of State and the House of Representatives in Libya meet in Cairo, Egypt, hoping to reach consensus that leads to presidential and parliamentary elections as soon as possible. With the support of the United Nations, the meeting between Khalid al-Mishri and Aqila Saleh resulted in consensus regarding most of the provisions of the constitutional document and the development of electoral laws in full agreement between the two councils. The joint statement that followed the dialogue session included agreement that the joint committee between the two chambers refer the constitutional document for approval in accordance with the work system of the Supreme Council of State and the House of Representatives. The meeting coincides with the passage of 1 year since the postponement of the Libyan presidential elections, also resulting in the development of a roadmap to complete all necessary procedures for the electoral process, leading to the unification of institutions. Libyans hope that the political parties will overcome controversial issues, especially those related to the constitutional document, which constituted a major obstacle in the way of organizing the first presidential elections in the Libyan state.
And from Africa to the Middle East, Palestinians mourn today, Thursday, yesterday, Thursday, the teenager Murta Amir Abu Zaytoun, who was killed by the Zionist entity's forces in Balata refugee camp east of Nablus. The funeral procession was attended by a large crowd which came to bid farewell to young Murta, chanting slogans condemning the occupation's crime against the defenseless Palestinian people. The Ministry of Health announced at dawn that 16-year-old Amir Abu Zaytoun was dead after being shot in the head by the occupation soldiers during their aggression on Nablus.
His brother has been in prison for 2 weeks. He asked me who will go to the court. I said, your father is working, he can't go. He said, I will go. I told him, we can go together. He said, no, you stay here and I will go. I want to see my brother Mahmoud. I miss him. I looked for him and didn't find him. He was already dead.
قتل الليلة واحد منهم.
They killed one of us, a 15-year-old boy. He was standing up and they shot him with an explosive bullet. They blew his head. He screamed, "We are staying home. Why do they shoot at us? The bullets can penetrate the walls and hit us while we are sleeping. But thank God Allah is with us."
Still in Palestine, the proceedings of the emergency session of the UN Security Council on Palestine were kicked off in New York. The session aims to discuss the occupation forces' violations of status quo in Al-Quds following Ben Gvir storming the courtyards of Al-Aqsa Mosque last Tuesday, the move which was strongly condemned by the international community.
We just concluded a meeting with the President of the Security Council. And then when he saw about 50 delegations in the room, he was impacted and he said, "I feel your outrage and your anger, and I am super impressed by this massive support at the level of the international community."
The longest-serving Palestinian prisoner Karim Younis has been released after serving 40 years in Zionist prisons. The prison authorities released Younis, 66 years old, from Hadarim prison just north of Tel Aviv at dawn on Thursday morning. He was arrested in 1983 and charged in Zionist courts with the killing of soldiers in the occupied Syrian Golan Heights 3 years before.
Palestinian prisoners are ready to pay with their lives for the liberation of Palestine. We hope that the people will unite and the national unity will return. The prisoners are all united to confront Ben Gvir and his group, who threatened the prisoners even before assuming their duties.
Still in Asia, Lebanon's military tribunal on Thursday charged 7 suspects in last month's attack that killed an Irish peacekeeping when a group of armed local residents ambushed his convoy and opened fire. According to officials over there, the shooting took place near the town of Al-Aqbiya in southern Lebanon, a center of support for the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, which has denied any role in the killing. The United Nations has warned that millions of people in Syria will struggle if Security Council fails to extend a resolution that allows humanitarian aid to be delivered to the northwestern part of the country. The UN added that around 50.3 million of people will be in need for humanitarian aid in 2023, the highest in the country since 2011.
We keep seeing media reports of increased violence in different parts of Syria. We would like to see an end to that, and we would like to see all the parties recommit to the political efforts.
Turkish presidency reported that Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan urged the Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to enforce a unilateral ceasefire in Ukraine via phone call. According to Kremlin, President Putin responded that he was open to dialogue with Ukraine if Kiev accepts territories occupied by Moscow as Russians.
As Russia, Turkey and Syria, our intelligence officials and defense ministers met in Moscow and we have launched a process there. We will bring our foreign ministers together and then, depending on developments, we will come together as leaders.
Still with Vladimir Putin, Russian president on Thursday ordered his armed forces to observe a 36-hour ceasefire in Ukraine this weekend for Orthodox Christmas holiday. However, the move was rejected by Kiev, saying Moscow wants to use this event as a cover to stop Ukrainian advances in the eastern Donbass region. Nabil Khazini on this report.
11 months of a lasting conflict that seems to be ceaseless. Up to the moment, the first major attempt for a ceasefire has failed. The Russian president ordered his troops to stop fighting for a 36-hour truce in the front line for the Orthodox Christmas holiday. The request was made by Patriarch Kirill to allow believers to attend church services. However, until Russia withdraws all its forces from Ukraine, Kiev is not willing to accept Putin's offer for a ceasefire.
They now want to use Christmas as a cover in order to stop the advances of our boys in Donbass and bring equipment, ammunition and mobilize troops closer to our positions. What will that give them? Only yet another increase in their total losses.
But in the Turkish capital, there are some other positive signs. Turkey is still making efforts for a mediation to reduce tensions between the two warring sides.
I had a talk with Mr. Putin this morning. We discussed the Russia-Ukraine war in detail. In addition, we talked about what we can do in the region.
Earlier, President Putin sent a frigate to the Atlantic Ocean armed with a new generation hypersonic cruise missiles, sending signs to NATO not to underestimate Russia's ambitions in Ukraine.
Russians are working hard to acquire more ammunition, more material, and above all, we have no indication that President Putin has changed his plans and goals in Ukraine. So it's dangerous to underestimate Russia.
Så det farlig å undervurdere Russland.
On the other side of Ukraine, Russia and Belarus have beefed up joint military exercises. Kiev warns Moscow wants to open a major northern new front line in the war.
In the United States, Kevin McCarthy lost 7th and 8th round of voting for U.S. House Speaker on Thursday after offering to reduce the clout of Speaker's job in a failed bid to persuade hardline Republicans colleagues to back his candidacy, raising questions about that party's ability to wield power. McCarthy has fallen short in 8 roll call votes over 3 days, paralyzing the chamber and illustrating the outsized influence of a small group of far-right lawmakers in the 435-seat House of Representatives elected in November to a 2-year term. McCarthy also failed to succeed the Democrat Nancy Pelosi as a speaker in 6 prior votes on Tuesday and Wednesday.
The Honorable Byron Donalds of the state of Florida has received 19. The Honorable Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 1. With 1 recorded as present. No member-elect having received the majority of the votes cast, a speaker has not been elected.
President of the ECOWAS said on Wednesday that there would be no sanctions against Bamako for jailing 46 Ivorian soldiers. Earlier, ECOWAS gave Mali a deadline of January 1st to free the troops or face sanctions. Malian authorities detained Ivorian troops after they arrived at the capital's airport on July 10 to provide backup security for United Nations peacekeeping mission, accusing them of being mercenaries.
I don't want my mandate to be crowned with sanctions. It will be said that the Guinean president likes sanctions too much. This does not give a good image of my mandate. I don't like signing penalties. I did it once, and it really broke my heart.
President Joe Biden announced on Thursday that the United States will use pandemic-era restrictions to rapidly expel Cuban, Nicaraguan, and Haitian migrants caught illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. At the same time, Biden will allow up to 30,000 people from those 3 countries plus Venezuela to enter the country by air each month. The plan is part of a bolder effort to data record numbers of border crossers and address a political and humanitarian challenge that has dogged the president since taking office in January 2021.
I sent Congress a comprehensive piece of legislation that would completely overhaul what has been a broken immigration system for a long time. Cracking down on illegal immigration, strengthening legal immigration, and protecting dreamers, those who with temporary protective status, and farm workers, who all are part of the fabric of our nation.
And now for more international news, let's follow this roundup.
Dozens of Tunisian lawyers protested Thursday against a VAT hike for their profession that goes from 13% to 19%. Led by bar chairman Hatem Mizou, the lawyers gathered in front of the Palace of Justice in Tunis, and others protested on other sites, on the occasion of a day of anger decreed by the National Order lawyers against the 2023 finance law, which is part of a measures to increase tax revenue.
This is a day of anger. We will wear a red armband all the day during the protest sit, in which will take place from 9 to 11 a.m. We refuse to allow the interests of citizens to be hindered.
Organized by the Young Collective Doctors for Tomorrow and supported by several unions, liberal doctors took to the streets on Thursday afternoon in Paris to obtain a revaluation of the consultation, the government saying it was ready if it is reasonable and if the health needs of the French are met.
Quality medicine has a cost, and we are being pushed to do low-cost medicine with consultations at 25 euros, where the National Health Insurance Fund implies that we should see 6 patients per hour. I do a lot of complicated consultations with the elderly. I find it inhuman to impose a 10-minute consultation on them. If I chose to be a doctor, it's for the human relationship and the care, and for that takes time.
Union leader warned on Thursday that the worst wave of strike action to Great Britain in decades could continue through 2023 as no sector is willing to back down, underlining the scale of the challenge facing British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
There is a cost of living crisis, inflation is ramping through the roof. After 4 years, my people feel they deserve a pay rise. Inflation ran at 14% last year, it's in double digits this year. Effectively, people have seen a 25% cut in their disposable income and their real wage. How long can that go on for?
Burning buses blocked roads in Colican on Thursday after the son of Mexican drug baron Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was arrested in the city. Video on social media showed burned out and burning vehicles as violence spread across the city, closing the airport.
Traditional wood fire bread making is helping shield French baker from skyrocketing energy costs. This wonderful craft that saves lives is described by Mohamed Khatel in this report.
Frank Burgot, who owns the only such bakery in a town in western France, did not predict how things would be now when he opened his bakery 23 years ago. Thanks to his preference for wood, the baker, who works with his wife and daughter, has made significant savings on energy bills, while many of his colleagues are on the brink of financial collapse because of the high energy cost. Burgot stressed that thanks to this technique, the bakery will still work in case there is an electricity outage, in addition to the relatively low price of wood.
Le prix de revient d'une cuisson journalière, c'est entre 20 et 25 euros.
The cost of a day's worth of bread is between 20 and 25 euros, so it remains less than electricity. The price of wood has risen by 3 to a maximum 5% over the last year. This is not even remotely close to the electricity prices, and in case of power outage, a wood-fired oven will always work.
Even as Burgot's energy source has protected him from significant costs, the French baker still feels the impact the war in Ukraine has on his business, especially the increase in the price of basic products.
Everything has risen up to 100%. Eggs cost is almost twice as much. Butter is up by 50%. Flour has risen a lot as well. Flour now costs 15 to 20% more than before. The problem at the moment is that all the raw materials have seen their price significantly increase. In addition to energy costs, it is unbearable. On the long term, things are opaque. It is truly worrisome.
French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire has recently urged power suppliers to do more to help the country's small and medium-sized businesses cope with this rise in power costs, adding that the state would write to France's bakers to detail the existing and future help they can expect.
What I'm forced and sorry to see is that the commitments which were taken by some energy providers were not respected. We had asked providers to give time for small businesses owners to look at their energy contracts in order to shop around if needed. But we still see some energy providers who send contracts saying They have 2 or 3 hours to sign a contract renewal. This is not acceptable.
For many bakers, this way of cooking bread is chosen for its authenticity. It's another way of making bread by going back to the roots and working on the bread as best as possible.
Several sports and cultural activities have been programmed across the various towns of the state of Constantine to promote the African Nation Tournament for local players, where the third group matches will be hosted by Shahid Hamlawi Stadium, according to what was posted Thursday by State Organizing Committee for this continental football event. According to the same source, the Directorate of Youth and Sport has programmed local sports competitions and championships that are taking place in the state of Constantine during the current season, specifically during this period, to involve the competitors in the efforts to promote the Chan. On the other hand, a parallel cultural program also has been prepared to keep pace with the African events, which includes performances, exhibitions, and cultural and artistic activities through the sector's facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And for now, all I can say, good night.